Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Stephen. I'm an unpopular investor on eToro. Today I'm going to be doing my usual YouTube video which explains what happened in the markets last week and how our portfolio did. So I'm going to try and make this a short video if possible, just so you can try to absorb the information as quickly as possible. If you want to find out a little bit about me, please visit my website, which is www.𝘃𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗀𝗀, and also please like this video and subscribe to my YouTube channel. That will be really helpful. Right, so to get started, so our portfolio did quite well last week, actually in line with most of the indices. So it was exactly in line with the S&P 500, which was at about 0.8%. And it was actually, although it was a little bit lower than the NASDAQ, which was about 1.8% up for the week, as technology stocks did particularly well last week. So what happened in the markets last week? Well, in the US, there was a lot of discussion around interest rates and also inflation once again. So the 10-year government bond prices actually reduced last week quite considerably over the week, which actually gave some good upside to technology stocks. As we've said previously in the past, as bond yields decrease, this actually incentivizes people to actually go into technology stocks. So they performed really well last week. Also, the Fed balance sheet last week actually hit $8 trillion for the first time. And this is absolutely massive amount. And as we know, most of this was to do with 2020, when they actually gave out a huge amount of stimulus to both citizens and also companies in the US. And this has actually caused the balance sheet to actually inflate as they printed more and more money. Also, the government spending bill, the infrastructure plan that was actually put in place by Joe Biden, there was actually a lot of discussions last week and proposals from Congress, who are actually trying to reduce that plan down from about $2 trillion to $760 billion. And actually they're trying to do this without increasing the corporate tax rate. As everybody knows, that was a big bone of contention when Joe Biden actually proposed his $2 trillion infrastructure plan. So it's not known whether that would be approved yet by the Republicans, Democrats, and also Joe Biden. But time will tell. And it's obviously an interesting development as well. As we go into Europe now, Europe had actually a fairly decent week in the stock market as well. And there was a number of kind of different reasons for this. So again, if we look at what's happening in the UK, the UK was due to open more restrictions towards the end of June 2021. This is looking increasingly less likely, mainly to do with the Delta variant, which is the Indian variant, which seems to have been spreading more rapidly throughout the country, although a lot of people now are actually vaccinated. So I think Boris Johnson actually said in an interview last week that they were going to be very data driven, and they were going to make a decision nearer the time of when it was supposed to be opened up, whether they prolong this restriction period and actually delay reopening for a little while. So we'll watch that space on that. That could affect the UK markets over the next few weeks. The ECB also continued the bond buying scheme throughout Europe, and also there was some information around the inflation, expected inflation in Europe as a whole. It was actually expected around 1.5% inflation, but the latest figures is looking at about 1.8% inflation. So just like the US, it's actually running higher than was initially anticipated. So we could see a lot of inflationary pressure taking place. In China, stocks fell for a second week in a row. That was after previously a good few weeks of gains in the Chinese market. So that in China there was some increased discussions between the United States, between Joe Biden and the president of China, and what they are looking to do is looking to increase and strengthen the ties between the two countries in business. And one of the things that was announced last week is that the previous proposed ban by Donald Trump to ban companies such as TikTok and WeChat in the United States has been overturned by President Biden administration. So I think this is pretty good for ties between the two countries and potentially for technology stocks. There was also data from China around inflation statistics as well. If we look at something called PPI, which is the Producer Purchase Index. And what this is basically an inflationary gaze. It's also known as factory gate inflation. As obviously a lot of different things are made in China and produced in China. So if we actually look at that, it was initially, the consensus was initially that it would be about 6.8% on the PPI index, but actually this has increased to 9%. So we're seeing a lot of increased inflation in terms of things that are going to be purchased from China. And there's quite a simple explanation for this, and I think most of it is to do with obviously supply chain shortages, but second of all, I think quite importantly is to do with commodity prices has increased, and this has caused the cost for Chinese producers to make goods and other products. So this could be a strong weight on the world in terms of inflation. So we need to keep a firm eye out for that. As we move on to now what's happening in the cryptocurrency market. So as I focus on Bitcoin to begin with, so El Salvador has passed its bill in order for Bitcoin to become legal tender in the country. As we all know, last week the president of El Salvador actually featured in the Bitcoin Miami conference, in which he stated the plan to actually propose and set a bill that it would become legal tender. This was passed with the majority in the El Salvador government, and now this is coming to pass. And what this means is that every vendor, every shop in El Salvador has to have the ability to be able to take payments in Bitcoin. So obviously this is a massive move for the whole Bitcoin infrastructure, and also, as I've said before, it actually sets a precedent for for other countries in the world to actually eventually adopt the Bitcoin standard in their countries. And I think there are a lot of benefits for that, especially for some of the small, more innovative nations. The president also stated that he plans to use the resources in the country, in El Salvador, such as the volcanoes, to actually produce more renewable energies in the country and actually improve the efficiency and the renewable nature of Bitcoin mining. So this is actually a really good situation. If we also look at other news in the Bitcoin market as well, if we look at a company called Hut8, which is a mining company, a Canadian mining company, they've actually just been announced that they're going to be listed on the NASDAQ exchange. This is really good for the overall growth and infrastructure of crypto, as we have another public company that has listed. We've also seen some selling pressure on Bitcoin, and I think a lot of this has to do with the increased strictness on mining in China. It was actually stated last week through on-chain analytics that Chinese miners actually sold about 5,000 Bitcoin last week. And actually, although that is a fairly significant number, I expect that to decrease over time. And as I've said before, I'm expecting Bitcoin mining to actually become more distributed throughout the world, which I actually think is a good thing overall for Bitcoin. If we also look at on-chain analytics, we can also see that there has actually been a big outflow of Bitcoin from exchanges to kind of private wallets that are not on exchanges, which is usually a good sign because it shows that there is a transfer of Bitcoin, usually for the terms of the speculators who tend to keep and traders who tend to keep Bitcoin on exchanges so they're able to trade, to kind of long-term holders or hodlers of Bitcoin who are more likely to stand the test of time and to hold Bitcoin. So I think that this is a very positive step as well. We've also seen another tweet from our good friend Elon Musk. There was an article, I think it was from CoinDesk or Cointelegraph, which said that, which insinuated that Elon Musk had been manipulating the Bitcoin market by saying that they were no longer going to be accepting Bitcoin as a form of payment for their EV cars. What he actually replied to that was that he thinks that this will only be temporary, and that as soon as he thinks that the energy efficiency has gone over 50% renewables, which I could argue that it already has done, then they will start to accept Bitcoin again for payment. But I think, again, one thing to note there is it's not something that I'm really excited about. Again, I don't expect a lot of people to be buying EV cars with Bitcoin, but again, it's quite a good step in terms of legitimacy. But I would personally, if I was you as an investor, I would ignore all of this noise that's coming from Elon Musk and how he's tweeting. I don't think making investment decisions based on how Elon Musk is feeling on a given day is a good strategy. So I think it's important that we just see the things that matter and the metrics that matter, and then we make decisions accordingly. I've also done a lot of trades over the last couple of weeks in terms of trading volatility. I think everybody knows my strategy by now, is that when we have very high volatility and crypto is going down, I like to make these short trades where I can make, usually somewhere between 3 to 7% in a short time frame as things look to rebound. So I think we've made some quite good gains there as well. I've also closed some trades this week as well, because what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to stay as disciplined as I possibly can. And when some of our stocks hit or surpass all-time highs, I am looking to either take profit or close some of those positions on strength. So this week I've actually closed some positions in eBay, which I actually made a really good gain there. Also Vista Outdoors, which I'd held for several months, which actually made a really good profit as well. And also Big Lots, which is another company that I bought during the coronavirus pandemic. I think it was towards the end of 2020, and that has also made us really great profits over the last 6 months or so. And that hit all-time highs. So it was time to take profits on those, and I've started to take new positions and larger positions in new companies as well. So I've actually just taken a position in a company called Cedar Point, which is actually a theme park, or a group of theme parks in the US, who I think will actually benefit really well from the opening up of the economy. It's a very solid stock, but obviously we need to watch and see how things end up in terms of the coronavirus and how restrictions continue to be lifted and how much confidence people have to start visiting public areas again. But I think there's a lot of pent-up demand for this type of attraction. Another stock that I've also bought this week is a Hong Kong stock called 𝗳𝗶𝗱𝗲𝗃 Group, which is actually a chain of hot pot restaurants in China. And I think we're going to see a huge demand for dining in China and for leisure. And this is a very popular hot pot chain in China. And I'm expecting them to do really well over the next kind of 6 to 12 months. So I think it's a stock that I'm pretty excited about, and I'm glad that we've added to our portfolio. So thank you very much for listening to my weekly update today. I appreciate it as always, and if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. And also, I'm very confident over the next few months that we can build up some momentum in our portfolio. And for some of those that have been copying for the last kind of 1 to 2 months, who may have copied at an all-time high in my portfolio, please kindly be patient and have trust in me that over time that I can deliver really great results for you. Thank you very much and have a good week ahead.